Hey guys, this is Anthony, and we are currently on the What series. And again, some of these people in the Bible, I just don't get it. I mean, their actions just take the cake, the pie, the crust, the cream, or you name it, it just takes it all. Unbelievable. So, we're going to talk about a certain person today named Jeroboam. Oh, these people. Jeroboam. Okay, now his story, the narrative can be found in 1 Kings chapter 11 and 12. I mean, you know, like Judas and Ahaz were bad, but this one just, I don't know what to say, man. I just don't know what to say. Okay, so let's just talk about it. So anyway, Jeroboam, let's talk about him. Jeroboam was a servant of King Solomon. Okay, very industrious young man, and Solomon put him in charge of a lot of the work that he was having done as he was, bringing the kingdom to its apex, especially, say financially, but as far as glory wise, under Solomon, because primarily the activity of David, Jerusalem, Israel was just at its climax. At this time, I believe it can be safely stated that Israel was probably like the Babylon or the Greece or the Rome of its day. Just powerful, okay? So, Jeroboam, again, he was a servant of Solomon. Now, unfortunately for Solomon, and you'll see that in 1 Kings chapter 11, right off the bat, I mean, as soon as, verse 1 comes in, it says, now Solomon loved many foreign women. As a matter of fact, I'm paraphrasing, but I'm really close. It says, he loved many of the women God said you should not love. My people should not love. And let that be a little caveat to us as Christians. God has not changed. If you're a Christian person, you need to marry in the faith. The only time you're really allowed to violate that is if you marry someone who was not a Christian before you became a Christian. And then you became a Christian and they had not yet. Okay, God will allow that. But you cannot enter into a marriage with someone that's not a true Christian. That's called an unequal yoking, and you're asking for trouble. So anyway, God told the children of Israel like this, but especially the kings. But it says Solomon multiplied these women. And then it says he married, first of all, the daughter of Pharaoh. I mean, because of Israel's history with Egypt, you think that'd be like the big, again, red flag. But he married the daughter of Pharaoh. He married, the Moabites, just a bunch of different women. He had, I think it was 1,000 women altogether. I think it was 700 wives, 300 concubines. He was just, now the reason he did this, and this is extra, he did a lot of this, I believe, and I think it can be safely stated, because he wanted peace. So all these were like strategic marriages. If I marry Pharaoh's daughter, then me and Pharaoh are going to be in a relationship, so I don't have to worry about a war with him. If I marry such and such daughter, same thing. So he was doing a lot of that for that reason. Didn't trust God. So we have to be careful. We want to take on the ways of the world, right? Things that are not in his word. I think that, well, there's, okay, I'm not going to get into that. But we do things out of rationale and reasoning, and it's not what God said, and we can really get ourselves in trouble, like Solomon did, because it says in subsequent verses in chapter 11 that these women turned his heart away. And this is where Jeroboam comes in, because Solomon began to worship these foreign gods. Like, man, no, 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 no. See, so that lets you know, was he really the wisest king, or was he the smartest? Because wisdom is knowing how to apply knowledge, and it's the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge and wisdom. And he didn't continue in the fear of the Lord. So I don't care how smart a person is. Listen, obedience is obedience. You don't have to be terribly smart to say, I'm going to just listen to what God said. Well, that would make you smart. But he didn't do that. Okay, so because he didn't do that, God began to raise up enemies for Solomon. But it says this, that Ahijah, a prophet, met Jeroboam one day in an open field. So God arranged this meeting. And Ahijah had like a new mantle on, or tunic or whatever. And he took the tunic and he tore a part of the tunic into like 12 pieces. And he gave 10 of those to Jeroboam. He said, thus saith the Lord. he basically he said this: God is going to give you 10 tribes. Watch this. Give, give you. You're not going to have to politic. You're not going to have to, run for president or prime minister or king or whatever. You're not going to have to scheme and plot. He's going to give you these. Okay, and I think he goes on to explain because, Solomon had been. But anyway, he tells him this. And he says, all you need to do, this is the prophet talking to Jeroboam, all you need to do is just follow the statutes of God. Just do what God's telling you to do, and God's going to give you a name like David. So just imagine, if he'd have been obedient, just like there's a Davidic kingdom, there would have been like a Jeroboamic kingdom. Okay, so God said he's going to give him this. But God said, I'm not going to do it in the days of Solomon. It's going to be after Solomon's gone, and I'm going to take these tribes from his son, which would be Rehoboam. Okay, well, that happens. And you know the story, Rehoboam becomes king. Solomon dies. And the people come and say, hey, Rehoboam, could you please lighten the load? Your father was kind of strict with us. He said, well, come back in 3 days. Then Rehoboam goes and talks to his boys that he grew up with. And they say, oh, no, don't listen to these people. Tell them you're going to be rougher on them than your dad was. So Rehoboam, unintelligently chooses the advice of his friends. And the reaction from the people was, forget you. So guess what happens? Just what God said would happen. 10 tribes leave the southern kingdom. And that's where the northern kingdom was formed, the southern northern kingdom. They leave and say, no, we don't have anything to do with you. Okay? And guess who they made king? Come on, guys. Jeroboam. God gave it to him like he said. Now here's where it just blows my mind. If I'm Jeroboam and all of a sudden there's 10 tribes, I'm sure millions of people, right? All of a sudden that I'm over. Just like the prophet said, I'm scared a little bit. I'm having a fear of the Lord. I'm like, Lord, okay, you did this. Like, why I just fell into my lap. Okay, but he doesn't do that. I don't get it. I mean, God he gave you the kingdom and then promised you a name like David. Just follow the Lord. The first thing this man does, he says, oh no, you know what? The people may decide to go worship, because the temple was in where Rehoboam was, the original king, in the southern kingdom. And he's in the north. So he's thinking, oh no, the people are going to want to go back to the southern kingdom to worship down there. I need to do something about that. Now you heard what God told you. God said, just follow. You already have 10 tribes. And again, Give, God gave them to you. For crying out loud, man, when things fall into your lap like that, you need to chill out and just follow instructions. This man freaks out. Says, oh, they're gonna go worship and they're gonna leave me. So he makes a golden calf, like 2 golden calves, like this fake pagan shrine, kicks out all the Levites, the ones that are properly supposed to or chosen by God to lead worship, and then tells the people, these are your gods. Can you say it? Ready? 1, 2, 3, say it. What? Ready? 1, 2, 3, ready? Okay, now let's say it together. 1, 2, 3. What? And one more time. What? Like, dude, what? God just gave you the kingdom. Man, I'm sorry. I get worked up, so I'm thinking, wouldn't you want? How many of you all that are watching this right now would love for God to say, I'm just about to give you a state. I'm just about to give you a thriving business. I'm just about to give you an enterprise or something, a franchise. And he said, if you just follow, if you just pray on a daily basis, if you just worship correctly, if you lead your people in the Lord, I'm going to cause your franchise to prosper. I mean, and it just fell into your lap because you were faithful. I mean, what would you do? You'd be like, yes. You'd be testifying, right? This dude went and the first thing he did The first thing he did, not the second, the first thing he did was build a fake shrine, kick all the Levites out. I'm thinking, I wanted to put this man in a headlock. I'm like, man, what's wrong with you? Like, God just gave you this thing. What are you thinking? See, that's what I'm saying. Like, people in the Bible, it's so incredible to me. The way they act. I'm like, God has been like so good to you. Because, you and I, we may have had to go through some things. Or we may be going through some things, right? And it's a struggle. And it's hard. It's not easy. And, sometimes there's prayer, there's fasting, there's different things, things you have to go through. But you think, when God puts something in your lap, he puts something in your lap. And he says, if you just follow these basic instructions, it's going to flourish. Dude, follow instructions. What this guy, Jeroboam, the son of Nebat. I'm like, man, and you think about it. When you hear a person's name, like you hear King David, instantly you think, oh yeah, on point. A man after God's own heart. When you think of King Saul, it's like, thumbs down, right? When you think of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, just imagine if this man would have been obedient to the Lord. God said, I will give you a house like the house of David. So Jeroboam would have went down in history. We be thinking the Jeroboam kingdom, the Jeroboamic kingdom, son of Nebat. That would sound very honorable, Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, because he did great things. Because God caused his kingdom to flourish. But now you think of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, it's like, because he did horrible things. And I'm like, no, what are you doing? Why would you do that? Oh, man. And then his story gets even better. His story, man, it gets even better. Now, I'm coming off the top of my head because I just remembered this. Because that was enough for a video. But it gets better. Because in comes a prophet. Now, this is subsequent chapters, okay? So I may post it in the description down below to let you know exactly where it's at. Because this is coming off the top of my head, but I'm on fire. So I want to just speak this to you right now. So in comes a prophet, right? And the prophet sees what Jeroboam has done, made this pagan altar. And the prophet stretches out his hand and points at the altar and says, oh altar, there's going to come a king in the future named Josiah, and that will be in the distant future. There's going to come a king who's going to destroy you, and he's going to burn the ashes and bones of these false worshipers of God on this altar. And he said, as a sign, this prophet speaking, he said, as a sign, this altar is going to break today. And it broke. Boom. Jeroboam is there. Jeroboam tells guards, get this prophet. I'm like, well, Jeroboam, come on. Oh, Jeroboam, turn around. Turn around. Okay, put your collar down. Okay, I'm preparing a nice little spot. Blah! First, God gave you the kingdom. Okay, you blew that. In comes a prophet to tell you, you're screwing up. Okay? He wants to take the prophet down. So here's what God caused to happen. It gets better. So as Jeroboam points to the prophet and he's telling the temple guards, get him. Jeroboam's hand shrivels to the point to where he can't pull it in. He's having a hard time even maneuvering his hand because it's shriveling up. And so Jeroboam freaks out, which I'm sure was the intent of his arm shriveling up. God's getting his attention. Okay? Not saying God did that to him, but God allowed it to happen. He deserved it though, man. So his arm shrivels. So Jeroboam looks at the prophet and says, oh, help me. So the prophet asks God, to heal him. God heals him. God heals this man. Don't you know he did not change his actions? Now I'm going to say it. What? Dude, you already blew it. You blew it like a northern. You blew it cold, bro. You blew it. Okay? You made a pagan altar. You causing all of Israel, you're encouraging all of Israel, the 10 tribes you have, to sin. So you already screwed up big time. here comes a prophet to kind of give you a warning. Like God is saying, basically, you need to change, bro. Like right now. He wants to take the prophet down. His arm shrivels up. The prophet says, "Oh Lord, heal him," because he begs him. So he heals him, and then the man does not change his ways at all. The altar broke now, like the prophet said. This man's arm shriveled. Like, what do you need? Like, what do you need? What else can you know, if God did any more for this man, he'd have been an automaton. He'd have to been a robot. Like God would have to have jumped in his body and made the decision for him, which God can't do. I mean, God did everything for this man short of getting in his brain, tinkering with whatever's in there. Is a brain, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that, and causing him to make a decision. What more do you want? After you mess up the whole nation of Israel, causing everybody to sin, and you know when the people of Israel, when they sinned, they went left. I mean, they didn't go like right and like southwest. You know, they went all the way west. Boom, they went left quick. So they were messing up. And it's this king's fault, right? And he, even after the prophet gave a warning, he still didn't change his ways. Now watch what happened. Now look at the patience of God. It said God counted this as sin to Jeroboam. Like now God is saying that's it. You mean God was still trying to give this man a chance? Look at God, man. Look at the Lord. But check this out. Now, because of that, God got rid of this man's whole line. Like he didn't let him have any more children. As a matter of fact, Jeroboam, he in a later chapter, his wife does get pregnant, but the baby's sick. So Jeroboam sends his wife to a prophet to inquire if the baby's going to recover. And here's what the prophet says. The prophet says, this is the only person from your line that's going to even make it to the grave because God sees something good in this baby. That's wild. But I mean, his whole line was cut off. You know, because I mean, I'm thinking, man, if you sin to that degree and you're just that difficult to deal with and won't change, it must really screw up your DNA to the point where it will just infect the rest of your children. Like if God gave you that kind of a warning and you just disobey God to that much, I think it really just scars your DNA to the point where God's like, no, I'm not letting any more children come through you because your DNA is just screwed up. Like you just totally blew it. This man. So I'm just saying another example. But here's what we have to understand as Christians. There's people like this. And I'm praying. I say, Lord, please let my heart remain soft towards you. Let my heart ever become softer towards you and more supple, Lord God. May my will be given more over to you. And I pray that you can cause that to happen with joy in my life, Lord. I want to give myself to you. So I pray, you know, we all must have the potential to be like this. So that's just a scary thing because when you see this as a Christian, you know, and you're trying to please the Lord, you have a hard time believing that people would do it. Like, I can't believe a person did this. But that's the depth of wickedness of a sinful heart. So we have to just always be on guard. Every day, drink from the well. You know, every day, you know, meditate on the scripture. Every day, read some of the word. Do some praying. Go before the Lord. You know, spend a little time with the Lord every day. Why? Keep your heart right before him because every one of us on this planet, I believe, can get to the point to where we conduct ourselves like this man did. Unbelievable. So can we give him a big what? Jeroboam, son of Nebat. What were you thinking, my friend? All right, guys. So check that out in 1 Kings. Jeroboam's narrative basically is in 1 Kings chapter 11 and 12. And that's where you see his beginnings and he rises to power. So that's it, guys, for this episode of What? We will continue this series, I believe, in a bit. Talk to y'all later. Love you. Bye-bye.